Hello, welcome back everyone for the second in our Redshift challenge weeks. And we have Dustin here and Lionel. Welcome guys.
Hello.
Hi.
And thanks for saying hi on the questions already. Hi to Bernd, hi to Tyler. Nice to see you again. And you'll notice something this week, that Dustin is looking much more relaxed than he was last Monday.
Just a little bit.
And Lionel's looking a little less relaxed than he was last time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Because this is scary challenge time. So what the plan is, we're going to challenge Lionel this, or you're going to choose how to challenge Lionel, and which particular Redshift feature that he can't use. And so we'll tell you all about that in a second, but just on the screen here, just a reminder to check out all the other shows that we've got going on, including the May edition of the 3D Motion Show from Maxon. We've got lots of great artists turning up for this. And if you missed last week's, if this is a new one for you, please log in to the Maxon Training Team on YouTube, and you can see the recording. You can see the fly in the fly in Dustin's studio, which Bernd is wondering, do you have the fly in the jar this week?
I don't. It escaped. It escaped before I could get to it. So
it escaped. Maybe it's flown over to Paris, where Lionel is. You never know.
I'll
In
check.
fact, we've got a yes, you'll check, you'll find out. We've got an international panel today because I'm in Germany this week and you're in the US, Dustin, and you're in France, Lionel. And we've got people, Brian's from Seattle, Anders is from Chicago, and so on, and Tyler's in Arizona. So we got people from all over the place. So welcome everyone.
welcome.
Welcome. So let's just have a recap. This is what Dustin managed to achieve last time round. So this, you remember we had a number of different models to choose from, and this is the end result. But you worked on this a little bit, Dustin, after the event, didn't you? You did some extra tweaks.
Yeah, I give it a little bit of extra love. I feel, once we get going on these type of streams, time gets a little bit crunched. But I put about, I'd say maybe an hour and a half after the stream ended into finishing this up. A little bit of post in Photoshop, and yeah, I like the end result. Ian did a great job with the sculpt, so it was kind of fun to finish up.
It's very cool. Very, very cool.
That's really good. I love the extra detail that you've got in there. This just looks fantastic. And all the, what are the tendons around the jaw and everything? It's beautiful. Just a single light as well. Incredible what you can do.
Yeah. One light and a couple bounce cards later, it was definitely fun.
So here's a reminder to everyone. This is what we were choosing from. So Ian and Paul from ZBrush provided us with a bunch of models and sculpts to choose from. And so the plan is this week, we're going to let you vote again which particular model that you'd like Lionel to be using. In fact, let's just ask you, let me see if I can open up these polls on here. Here we go. To select which particular model are you going to use. Now we can't use the zombie Captain America one again, so don't choose that one because we're not going to choose it. But let's just launch that poll and let's just see which model do you think we should choose this week. So lots of people are voting. Guys, can you see Lionel and Dustin? Can you see the votes going on?
Yeah, I can see it. Fascinating.
All right, okay. So we've got a couple of neck and neck. There's a two-way race at the moment. So we'll give it another few seconds because we've got about 75 people have voted so far.
Oh, I don't see it. Oh man.
Oh, do you not? All right, okay.
Yeah, you can see it on the.
I'll see the final result.
You'll see the final result. Okay. Behind the scenes in the admin screen for the webinar stuff, we could see it. Okay, I'm going to close the poll here. So close poll and let's share the results. So here we are.
It's the banana.
Nice.
Cool.
So was that the one you were hoping for, Lionel?
Yeah, actually, I tried almost all of them, and they're all very nice. So, but the banana to-do is very fun. So there's a lot to do with it, I guess.
Okay, cool. So let's get down to the serious business. I should ask you which one of these that you don't want to feature. Maybe that's cheating, isn't it? We'll just do it live. So as per last week, the plan is you've got to vote for which particular feature that Lionel can't use. So we've already done the multiple lights, so don't choose that one. And basically, whatever you choose this time that Lionel cannot choose in his session over the next 45 or 50 minutes. So he's going to be restricted. So if you want him not to be using bitmap textures, vote for that one. Or if you want him not to be using procedural ones, then vote for that. And this is another 3-horse race in here, or 4-horse race actually.
Yeah.
It's going to and fro. A number of them are just people are choosing either one. And we've got another, 73% of people have voted for that. Okay, let's call this and let's just share the results.
Ooh, it's very, yeah, very close.
By a whisker.
Oh,
By
yeah.
a whisker. Yeah, exactly. So lots of people didn't want you to use bitmap, but
yeah, no bitmap. That's tough. Interesting.
So cool. So if you missed last week's, the whole thing about this show, this series, is that we're trying to increase your skills in Redshift or help you to do that. And one of the conceits of this is that if you've always got a go-to technique, and for example, Dustin last week always goes to use multiple lights. So it was a real challenge for him to do something with a single light. And also it's a way to open up the artistic approach as well and try new things and get a different look and a different result. So that's really the conceit behind this. So it's a bit of fun, but also it's the serious side is that it helps, in this case, experiment. What if you had to choose a different technique than you usually use? So do you usually use bitmap textures, Lionel?
I'm sorry, I was reading one of the comments.
Oh, you're right. I mean, of course you do, but bitmap textures are probably a usual part of your workflow, aren't they?
Yeah, I use everything actually. So any one of them is it's pretty tough. So we'll see. Yeah, no bitmaps, meaning only procedural material. So dealing with noise and so on. We'll see how it works.
Great. Okay. Well, then I'm going to hand the screen over to you. So let's make you a presenter.
All right. So does it work?
Yes, we see your screen now.
Yep.
And as Scott was saying, sorry, in the questions, Dome Light is a bit too easy. So if you've got any suggestions about what would be a good one, then let us know and put it in the survey at the end of the webinar, and then we can add some new ones into this mix.
Okay.
Great.
So I don't remember what we said. Are we keeping the webcam on or not on? I see Dustin has turned it up, so I guess we'll do the same.
Okay, it makes the interface bigger, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
let's do that.
More room for the interface. Okay, so
yeah. Okay.
To unplug the camera, turn it off actually. Okay, so the banana to do. So here it is in ZBrush. So again, it's a model from Ian, I think it was, and it's a very cute and scary banana that we have here inside ZBrush. So I'm going to use GoZ to go into Cinema 4D. So we have our tool here. I'm going to click on visible. Actually, I could use any one of them here because that's the only model visible here. But visible is, I would say, safer because it's only going to send what you see in your viewport. So let's go to visible. It's going to warn me that, well, a few stuff. I'm going to continue. and there is some flashing, and I can see on my taskbar that Cinema 4D is flashing also, and here is my model. So let's hit H to see it. And here it is. So we have all the models here, and we do have some stuff, the pretty group, and more importantly, we have here the vertex color tag, so that we can have those color and use them. And this one, very important, where we have the yellow and the green of the banana. Okay, so something I'm going to do first is to check here the model. As you can see, it inputted with a huge scale. It's like 19,000 centimeter. That's huge. It's going to, well, we can work with that, but if I go too far from it, you can see we have some clipping problem, and I don't like working with too big models. It's going to make a mess with some attributes, with some materials and so on. So I'm going to use here the edit scale project command, and let's reduce it target scale so to 0.001. So that'll be 100 times smaller. Okay, here it is. H again, and now my banana is like 2 meter high. This is a huge banana, but not as big as before. So it will be easier to work with. Okay, so what I was thinking with this is to have some, well, of course, some spooky mood, some spooky lighting to showcase the spooky model. And let's start. So I'm going to switch right now, I guess, to my RRS workspace, where we have everything. I'm going to show that here. So we have our Redshift render view with something that I don't understand. Doesn't matter. It's, I guess it's maybe a remain of what I did before. Anyway, we have our viewport here, our node editor, the material, everything. So let's just fire up to clear that, and we can see it works. Perfect. Okay, so I guess I'm going to start with the lighting because this is the way I work usually. I like to have my lighting done before anything with the texture and so on. So I guess what I'm going to do is change have a default material which is not that bright, because you can see here the default material which is a Cinema 4D materials use 80% gray. That's a bit too much. I'm going to create a new material. So yeah, first things first, we are in R26. And if we take a look here, I have already the Redshift render as a default. So because of that, I can use here, if I create a default material, it's going to be a RS material that I'm going to use for everything. So let's use the material. I'm going to put it on all of them. And then I guess I'll refine a little bit of that later. So now we have this different material, which is 81% value. So it's not that bright, as bright as the other one. It'll be easier to work with, to light everything. So I don't think I'm going to use a studio for this studio setup, meaning I'm not going to use a backdrop. Maybe I will, I don't know, because it's going to be pretty dark mood, and I think it works with the banana. And I'll use the volume light to give some volume to the whole thing. So let's start. I'm going to create some light. So because again, I'm using Redshift as a default renderer, I can use the light here, and we have all of Redshift light that I can use. So I'm going to start very I'm going to use first our highlight in front. So the highlight which is here, I'm going to use this feature here, add target tag and null. So it's going to automatically create a null, which is going to be on the center of the scene. So let's take a look here. You can see it's here. I'm going to put it on the banana, right on the center. So now if I'm going to move my object, it's going to move the right way. Okay. Also, I'm going to define a camera so I know where I'm looking at. So I have the perspective viewport chosen. I'm going to create a camera, become the camera. So now we can see this is the way, the direction I'm facing. So if I take my arrow light, I can move it somewhere here. Okay, let's move it there. Also, I'm going to reduce the size. And I guess I can already fire out the render. Okay, so I guess that can be the key light. It could be the other way also.
You have a luxury this week, Lionel, because you can use more than one.
Yeah, it's so much easier. I think the one light was maybe the toughest challenge. So my hat to you, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was fun.
So I have already one light here. Let's call it key light, key. And I guess the angle is nice. I'll see later. Okay, something else I'm going to do, I'm going to change the ratio because my banana will be more interesting. It's a long object, so 16 by 9 frame is not very easy to work with. So let's change here in our render settings. I'm going to use a square. So 800 by 800 for a start. Okay. If I refresh here, we can see it's going to be like this. Okay, and I'm going now with the camera to frame this a bit better. I'm going to change on the camera the focal length. It's like a portrait, so I'm going to use the 50mm or maybe the 80mm. I don't know. I think the normal lens will be fine for this. And let's go there. Okay, so one tip you might know already, you have some composition helper here if you want to use them. You just enable here, you can have the grid, the diagonal, the crosshair to have the center of the scene, and also the golden section and the golden spiral. And you have option for all of them if you want to flip them, for example, there, or maybe mirror like that, and so on. Personally, I use, most of the time, I just use the grid. The grid is just going to give you some idea of the proportion of everything. And here, my camera, I'm going to the coordinate, and let's add some banking here. So we have more interesting composition, something like this, a bit skewed.
Hey, Lionel, got a quick question for you. Jason has got an interesting
Yes.
question. He's wondering about whether you're using CPU or GPU, because of course Redshift can use both now.
Yeah, I'm going to use GPU. Redshift is very fast with GPU, not so fast with CPU. So if you have the choice, always choose the GPU. But of course, you have to have a very good GPU to make Redshift really faster. That's my case. I have a good graphic card.
Do you find when you work with facilities with render farms that most of the render farms are CPU based rather than GPU, or is there a bit of a change recently?
Well, now most of the render farms have both setups. So you can have a GPU only, CPU. The price are not the same, but they tend to converge to be more or less the same. Actually, they're more expensive with GPU, but because it's faster with the GPU, it tends to be the same price almost as CPU. It depends on what provider you're going to use. So I guess with Redshift CPU, maybe it's going to change a bit. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I really don't know.
We expect the performance to increase as well over time for CPU, for sure.
Yes, there's room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Just like remember, for example, Arnold, which went the other way from GPU to CPU, took years to have something fast with GPU. So Redshift, well, it's been a few weeks, literally. So it's going to take time to be really fast with the CPU. Okay, so I have I'm going to render again with the keylight. Okay, I'm just going now to take my keylight here and just duplicate it this way to have my fill light. And I'm going to increase the size of the fill light because, well, it's a fill light. And maybe we're going to move it on top. So I'm looking here, I'm moving it on the top front view and looking here on the render view how it looks. And I guess it's fine like that. Let's take on my key light, I'm going to color it a little. So I do that very often at the beginning to identify which light is doing what. And very often I just keep the color light because I like it. So here in the color, I'm going to use a color and maybe we can use some light blue like this. So this is the key light. We can see we have this color coming here. And if I choose now my fill light, let's call it the right way. So fill light, because it's a bigger one, I'm going to change the color to something more reddish like that. So it's going to create some nice color blend like this. And I think I'm going to decrease the intensity because I want to have this dark mood like that. Okay, so we still have our highlight very strong on the on my banana. That's something we're going to take care of using materials later. What I could do here is just kit it. So I'm going to the main material. I'm going to decrease the weight of the reflection to 0. So now it's pure diffuse. Okay, so now I'm going to use some backlight. So right now I'm creating a very classic, very usual setup for lighting. This is the 3-point lighting. Maybe I'm going to use more of them later. Maybe I'm going to use a bounce card like Dustin did last week. I don't know, let's see. Okay, so let's use area light again. This one, I'm going to use it to call it rim light. Let's add target tag and null again. So this is my rim target. I want to make it at the center. And my rim light, I'm going to put it on the background. So this is the way of the camera. This is my my light, and you can see it's going to have a nice effect on the shadow and so on. So if I go up there, we have more light coming from the top, obviously. On the bottom, it's interesting because it's going to give this highlight, this rim light on this part. I don't know, both are interesting. What I could do is just do something like that. So we have a very long one. It's going to give us already a bit of this eerie mood that I'm looking after. Okay, so let's change the color. And I guess for this one, I'll go orange maybe. Okay, so it's creating colors already. I think that's already pretty cool. Okay, so something that I do very often, very early on, I'm using the here our Redshift render postfix. So usually when I'm going to use is the photographic exposure, which is going to fill a bit the shadow. And because we're working here on aces, I'm going to allow the overexposure to the maximum. Okay, because you lose too much contrast if you don't use this one. This was the old way to avoid overexposure before ACES. And because ACES is going to take care of the overexposure for you, is going to preserve your highlight, you don't need to use this one anymore. So I'm just disabling the effect by putting to 1. Also, maybe I'll do it later. I like to use a bit of vignetting. Well, we don't see anything right now because it's, well, what's happening doesn't seem to work. Maybe if I change, that's weird. Okay, no matter, because I don't want to use it anyway. There is no effect because we're looking at, there is no frame, so you won't see the vignette effect. Okay, so that's a start. And now I guess I'm going to use already some volume light to create some depth for everything. So to use volume light, you're going to use here the Redshift environment. The problem, as soon as I do that, everything is going to turn white. Why? Because all of my light have in the details a contribution on the volume to the maximum. Okay, so 1 is huge, meaning that all the environment is filled by light. So I'm going to kill it everywhere. So I'm taking the 3 light and putting the volume to 0. And I'm going to work for each one of them right one after the other. So let's try already with the rim. So I'm going to the rim light, which is the backlight. If I increase the volume, we will see very fast some very strong lighting. Okay, so that's already very strong because I have strong light already. So on the environment, I'm going to decrease the scattering. Scattering is the overall intensity of your environment. So it's already better. And our rim light is going to give us this thing. So it's not that interesting. So instead, I guess I'm going to use a light for another light only for the volume light. Very often, I don't use the environment with the aero light. Or if I use it, I'm going to use another feature, which is the spread. The spread, which is going to focus the lighting on the object. I'm not going to use that. So let's instead use another light. I'm going to use a spotlight. Spotlight is perfect for that. And I guess the spotlight is only going to be used for the environment and not for the lighting. I don't know, we'll see. So let's create the spotlight. So my spotlight is right behind the object. I'm going to move it there. Then I'm going to use here. Okay, so I can see it here on this one. Actually, I can just maximize that so it's easier to see. It's Control Tab, very easy to maximize something this way, you can see. So I'm going to use this one. Let's rotate it this way. Okay, and I'm going to move it like that and try to put it off frame to have something that's going to wrap the entire thing. Okay, so this spotlight, I'm going to change the color to something very strong, maybe use some red, some bright red. And this spotlight is going to be using the volume light to the maximum. So let's fire up the render again. And we
So
have this result.
can I ask,
Yes?
Lionel, where would you use textures while you're lighting? So as part of your challenge, I know there's a few places that I would and have used textures before, especially with the volumetric lighting like that. You know, in my case, it's often been with things like Gobos and really getting a nice breakup of light. Is that
Yeah.
something that you do often?
Yes, that's something I'm going to do almost every time. Already here for it's not really a gobo, but for the Redshift environment, I'm going to use a noise, because here we have this, which is pretty nice, but it's too bland. It's too much of the same thing. It's just a simple gradient. So with some noise, we're going to break up this. And then later, I think for the key light and the fill light, I'm going to use some gobo to have nicer reflection, to dim the light a little bit.
Awesome.
That's something I do later. So here we have our spotlight. I'm going to the object, and if I reduce the cone angle already, we can have something interesting like that. The fall off angle is also going to, well, add on the fall off, as you can see. And looking like that, yeah, I want to have this light coming from there. And I guess here I'm going to make it a bit backward again. And on the details, we have the volume to 1. So that's another interesting stuff with the spotlight. It reacts differently, very differently from the real light, and it's very nice to use with the volume light. Okay, so let's use a material. So here I'm going to create not the default material. I'm going to hold. Okay, now we have in the utilities, I'm going to use the noise volume. So the noise volume is a special shader that I'm going to use on the Redshift environment. And you can see it dims a lot the light because there is a noise now going on. So this is the default noise from from Redshift, all noise. I'm not going to use this. And instead, I'm going to double click and use the Maxon noise. And there is one which is just great for that. It's the Nucleus. Okay, so now if I connect the Nucleus to the volume, we can see already we have this effect. So I'm going to increase the size in the input, sorry, the overall scale. And now you can see I'm going to have more intensity. So let's go to the spotlight again, because it's going to kill most of the light, well, a lot of it. So let's go back here on the object. I'm going to increase the exposure. And we have this mood already thanks to that. And maybe on the Maxon noise, I'm going to decrease the contrast. Yeah, decrease the other way around. So we have that kind of this texture, which is nicer, I think. And on the spotlight now, I'm going to decrease like this. Okay, so if I Control Tab, I can see it better. Okay, so at this point, what I like to do is to just toggle on and off my different light to see what's going on. So if I deactivate everything, okay, so this is the without any light. So the key light, then the fill light. Let's see what the fill light is doing by itself. Okay, then we have the rim light. So the rim light is very strong and give this effect which I like. And my spotlight on top of it. So I'm going to deactivate the Redshift environment. And you can see the spotlight doesn't do much on the banana. Okay, so it's no problem because I really use it mostly for the environment. If it was a problem, I could have dealt with it by going to the details and using the diffuse reflection. So if I just put the diffuse and the reflection to 0, now the spotlight is not contributing to the lighting, only in the global illumination and the volume. But as you can see, we don't see much because I guess just mostly skilled by the rim lighter. Let's see if I just do that. Yeah, it's very, you can see it here, actually. It's a very low effect. You can see it here. Okay, so let's go back. I think I like it like that. So let's go back to the Redshift environment. Okay, so now from there, I think we can start to work on the texture. Oh yeah, it's 36 already. So yeah, time flies. I already thought it was like a quarter, yeah, 15 minutes. All right, so let's do some texturing. Okay, so we have something very interesting with our ZBrush model. Also here, I'm going to untick the composition here so we can see our banana pack. We have some color paint. So those, that is the poly paint. So that's a painting which was done on ZBrush, and it holds color right to the vertex. Okay, if we take a look here, our model, you can see it's nicely done, and each one of the vertex is going to contain color. So it's not a texture, it's really color stored on the vertex of each of the model. So let's go back NA here. And if I click there, we can see them. And here we have the color of the banana. So I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to replace there. Those are the old materials. I guess I can just get rid of them. Those ones also. So the banana to do is this one. Let's create a new material. And this one will be the, let's call it the wrap. And I'm going to put it there. So it's going to replace. Okay, so we are back with some reflection. And here I'm going to, oh yes, this is the bug. Okay, so it happened a few times already. I'm going back to the standard interface. Let's go back to RS. Hopefully, no. Okay, so I guess I won't be moving the, sorry about that. So here I'm going to create a node which is going to be the vertex attribute.
You can mention a bit more about that bug if you like. Thank you for bug testing for us, Lionel.
Okay, you see it's gone. It's weird. It happens from time to time. I can't really pinpoint when it happens. I don't know if you.
Is it maybe a sticky key that you might have on your keyboard if you're pressing control? I have things like that once in a while when.
Yeah, it looks like a sticky key, but I disabled the sticky key in Windows, so I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Anyway, so okay, so my vertex attribute, I'm going to take here my vertex color and just drag it here. So this is vertex attribute. I'm going to drag there, and let's connect that to the color. So that alone is going to give me my texture. So it's very nice to have this model because this painting is already there. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so now I would like to have more details on that. So I'm going to use something. I'm going to use here the fixed scaling. The fixed scaling is very interesting because this is the render resolution. Okay, this is the zoom. If I create a render region, like this, and then I'm going to Control F. It's going to zoom in. I have so 90%, and if I wanted to zoom even more, what I could do is just increase the resolution we have here. So just to make clear, this is 800 by 800, so it's rendering this resolution. This is this percentage, but what I could do is make it 200%, so a lot more pixels, and then I can work on this detail. And here with my crop region, I have a very nice quality. There is no downgrading of the resolution, and see very close details on my texture. Okay, so here I'm going to start working on the texture of my banana. I'm going first here, let's, so I don't, yeah, no bitmap. All right, so here comes the fun. So only procedural material. Well, I don't have any choice but to use some noise, a lot of noise. So let's use a Maxon noise. Here, a very nice feature of this new node interface is the solo button. So I can see my texture like that. And I'm going to use some roughness map to dim a bit the reflection. So the roughness is going to blur the reflection. The bump is going to distort. So here, if I want to blur it, I'm going to use some noise, and maybe I'm going to use the looker, which is a noise I like to use a lot. And we have here our black and white. So black is going to be shiny, white is going to be very rough, like a very dull material. So if I just plug this to my material and to the roughness, we already have here this option. Now I unplug the solo here, just click here. It's going to be applied to it. Okay, so this is another bug I found. When you switch from the solo to no solo, you just have to relaunch. Okay, and right away we have, well, pretty nice result, I would say, with our Maxon noise. I'm just going to restrict it a bit. Let's go there. And I guess I won't be using here the black color. So black is going to be very shiny. And this monster is not really shiny. It should be more rough. So I'm going to change here. Let's go to something like that. Okay. If I deactivate and then relaunch, you can see we have less shiny material. Okay, so why not? I guess I'll get back to that. Now I would like to have some bump, which is going to be very important for this character. So let's use another Maxon noise. And for this one, I'm going to solo it. I guess I can try one of them. So I guess it could have some kind of, not scale, but some, well, you'll see the texture. So maybe the Voronoi, this Voronoi here is going to give us this texture, this pattern. I'm going to change the scale. Okay, the other way around. To have something like that. Okay, you can see some kind of spots like you would have on lemon or something like that. And let's see how it goes with a bump map. So I'm going to use the bump map. Let's plug it, input here in input. So you have some color coding, which is much easier to know where anything goes. For example, the Maxon noise won't work on the bump map because this is not the same color, as you can see. But here we have the yellow dot, meaning that I can input this to this. So the yellow dot is the color texture. When you have here a white texture, it's a scatter, meaning a black and white image. I'm really oversimplifying it, but you can use you can very easily put this one, so the yellow color inside the scatter input, because you're only going to use the luminance. And anyway, our Maxon noise doesn't have any color. Okay, but this one here is some kind of light pink, so it's bump map. It's very, very special. You only connect those together. So let's go to the bump map. I'm going to unplug it here, and let's reactivate. And yeah, there's something like that. You can see it's interesting on our character. So I guess it's much too strong overall here. I could play with the bump here, the height scale, but I guess it's our Maxon noise which has too much contrast. So let's see here, if I work with the low clip, high clip, what's going to do? Let's solo it to see. So if I use the low clip, I don't think it's, yes, okay, you can see it here. Sometimes it takes time to refresh. And if I go the other way, white like that, okay, and now if I decrease the contrast, let's pick it up like that. Okay, we have something that I think will be more interesting. I untake the solo, relaunch. Okay, you can see it's a bit smoother. And now I guess I can decrease the height scale. I'm going to decrease it quite a lot. Yeah, it's getting more interesting like that, I think.
Lionel, how would you be doing things differently if you could use a bitmap? Is this a more time-consuming process for you, or is there certain things you like about the different look?
Well, I love procedural maps, so I'm lucky I got to do everything with procedural. But procedural, yeah, it's kind of painful, but you can really fine-tune your texture. Bitmap texture are going to work right away, are easier to use, but you don't have as much control. Here you can really create your look, your noise by just over layering noise together. That's what I'm going to do here. I would like to use another noise again. So let's use another Maxon noise.
Dustin and I were chatting about even the fact that you're using Maxon noise isn't cheating because those are still procedural.
It's procedural, yes, of course. It's not bitmap.
Absolutely. And just whilst we're chatting, Jason has asked a question. How did he get the reflection to turn on? He's asking.
Oh, I just turned this is the differ material, which has here the reflection, the weight to 1. Actually, before I used a material without any reflection on to work on the lighting first, but then of course I'm going to use the reflection, because the reflection are going to, well, they're going to do almost all the work, reflecting the different light, giving volume to everything and so on. And then I guess I'll deal with the light again. Maybe I'm going to dim the light by using a gobo, like Dustin said. Okay, so here I have a second bump map, and I'm going to use a bump blender, which is going to allow me to mix 2 bumps together. So let's plug this first one, which will be my base bump, and the second one here, bump input, and the result is going there. Okay, so we don't say anything because our blend weight for the second bump is 0. This is already a trap because it's not working because it's 0. If I go to 1, it's going to replace the other one. So let's see. And we have this way more subtle bump because I'm using the default noise. Okay, so now if I want to use them together, I'm just going to use here the additive mode, and then they're going to be layered on top of each other.
So are there times where you'll use different inputs for the blend weights when you're doing the bump blender, or is this something that generally you're just looking to mix the two bump values? I know for
Yeah,
myself personally, there's quite a few times where I'll use like a curvature node
yes.
to break that up.
Exactly. I'm not going to do it because I'm already running low on time. But yes, what's interesting here is instead of just putting the weight one, which is just going to add the noise together, it's interesting to use another map, which can be another noise, which can be the curvature, which can be the noise, the AO, and so on.
Yeah.
Here, I guess it'll do like that. I guess I'll have time to do it differently later. Okay, let's go back to my fit window. So we have the whole thing. I'm going to untick here. Already you can see it's much nicer like that. Okay, because I'm running low on time, I'm going to create the other material very quickly. So let's create another material. This one will be for the flesh, for the banana itself. So which is this one, I guess. Let's see. So I'm taking here the object. I'm going to use the solo mode. Okay, no, that's the underlying part of this, but actually I'm going to use the same material. So perfect. The steam, I think it's steam. I think it was meant to be steam. I don't know. Okay, this one is, and this one I could use also the automatic solo, which is nicer. Okay, those are the eyes. Okay, and this is the flesh of the banana. Okay, and I will be under, and this one is the main one. Let's call it main. Okay, let's go back to the banana. I'm going to exit the solo mode. And for this banana, I'm going to use my point, but I think the point is just pure white. Looks like pure white. Anyway, let's use any vertex. I think it's not only white. There'll be some tiny variation. It's still interesting to use. So polypaint, let's use it to the here. And of course, I'm going to use here my flesh object on the banana here. All right. So yeah, it's very white. It's very white, and well, I'm going to keep it like that. Okay, here I'm going to use another Maxon noise. On the material here, I'm going to increase the roughness. We don't see much reflection on it because it's white. So reflection on white are much less noticeable. And here on this Maxon noise, this one, let's solo it. And I'm going to use maybe, let's try the stupol, for example. Yeah, stupol will be interesting, as you can see. So let's go back here to my fixed scaling. And I guess I'm just going to decrease a bit the scale here to stretch the texture, and maybe not so much. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Let's use a bump again. And I guess I just leave it like that. Let's put the bump, texture input, out to the bump, untick the solo, refresh. And yeah, it's much too strong, but you get the idea. It's something like that. So I'm going to decrease the height scale. Let's put 0.1. Yeah, it's going to give us a bit of variation. Also, maybe on this material, I'm going to use the multi-SSS to have some scattering going through. So let's put the amount to the maximum. And yes, you can see there is more of the rim light coming from behind, doing something. And the radius scale is, I guess, a bit too strong. So how tall is my object? Let's see. Oh yeah, I forgot. I lost my coordinate manager. So the coordinate manager is somewhere here. 100 centimeter. Okay, so the scale on my object here, 100 centimeter, I think it's fine. Maybe let's 75. Okay, let's go back to my original size. I'm going to untick here. And I guess now we can take care of the, okay, so this flash is going to be the same here on the under. All right, I'm going now to create another material yet, which is going to be the eye, very important for the eye. Let's put it here. And this one is going to use the vertex attribute again, because we have seen we have some nice color. So my eye is this one. They all call polypaint, so I could use the same vertex attribute for every one of them. The same material, it would work. Let's go there. And we have our eye. Nice. Okay, there is now the stem. And again, here, let's use the vertex attribute. And my stem is going to be here. All right, now we have this color. Okay, so it's taking shape. I guess something I could do with my main material here, this one. So yeah, this is the downside of using the vertex attribute. The material is going to appear pink, so it's not very nice on the viewport. I guess that something that will be supported later, let's hope. So here we have our main material, and I just want to do one last thing. I'm going to add some more shadow on that using the AO node. Okay, so the AO node, which is here, if I'm going to solo it, is going to give us shadow on the on our object. And well, for this one, it's not very strong. You can see it on the underside of the wrapper. It does something, but it's not very strong. So what I can do is just use it on the material. And the way to use the AO as it is on the material is to plug it in the overall tint. Okay, so this way it's just going to add more shadow on the object. It's going to be much more visible on the flesh of our banana. So let's go back here. Let's use the AO again. And if I put it on solo, we can see it here more. You can see the shadow, you can see those come from the AO node. So let's plug it to the material in the overall tint. And you can see, yeah, it adds a lot of shadow here. So it's artificial shadow, we could call it, because it just ignores the light. It's going to add this as a texture on top of it. Okay, so it's looking good, I think. Now I'd like to go to the, let's make it bigger. So Control Tab, and let's go to the Fit window. And here, maybe we can play a little with the color control. Also here on the Photographic Exposure, can I change my vanishing? Yeah, now it works. I don't know what happened earlier. So it's going to darken a bit on the side here. And on the color control here, I'm going to use the curve. I always use the curve to make it stronger like that. Maybe a bit darker too.
Side question for you, Lionel, because I know how much you love your post effects. If we
Yeah.
had added no, you can't use post effects here, what other method could you use to do this?
To this to this, well, I can use a postfix. It's a load now, so
I know you
I'm
can.
going.
I know you can. I just wondered how you would do it because I know that you have a favorite set of tools to use, but I was
Yeah,
just interested.
without postfix, well, you just have to deal with the light. With the contrast, you're going to do all by yourself. It's much more difficult because if you just want to add more contrast, you have to increase your light and find the balance between them to add contrast. It's really more difficult. But it's doable. It's doable, but it's so nice to be able to do it here. Okay, so now I have that. One last thing I guess I'm going to do is to dim a bit of the light because I think it's a bit too strong here on the on my main banana here. On the fill light also, it's too strong. So here on my key light, I have on my, well, it's a texture, isn't it? Actually, a gobo is a texture on the light, so I can't use it.
Well,
Well done.
could you use the noise?
Yes, I can. Well, I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting because that could be the last thing I'm going to do. Okay. So yes, I'm going to use something else, a procedural texture. So here on my key light, for example, maybe on the fill light, it will be more noticeable. So we have this light, which is pretty strong. Actually, I like this. I like it like that. I think my key light is just too strong, but whatever. Okay, on my fill light, you have an option here, add graph. When you do add the graph, so let's see our texture. If you go to add graph, it's going to add a texture for your light. Okay, this one. This is the fill material, which is a light shader. Okay, and it's not compatible yet. Oh, I forgot about this. We have the Redshift shadow graph working with this. Actually, it's not a problem because, well, I can use it here, or I could just use the new node graph. It's something, a bug I can, I will be able to fill for the development team a bit later, I guess. I'm going to use it here anyway, because here we have our physical light, and if we go in the input, in the general, we have the color. The color is the texture, okay? And we have now this. So if I use now a ramp, and the ramp is just a texture, I can plug it here, and now it's going to work. You see the color have changed because it's dictated by this ramp. And our ramp, we have our option here to color it. So I'm going to go back to the color I chose, which was some blue. Let's go back here. And you can see it's going to color it. Actually, it wasn't blue. I don't remember the color I chose. Yes, the fill light was using the red color, obviously. So, okay, so instead of the blue here, I'm going to use the red. And I think it was some pinkish red like that. Not that strong, obviously. So let's go back here and I'm going to desaturate a lot. Okay,
Anders
that's
has
more
mentioned
like it.
It's quite interesting. That almost looks like it's underwater with the style that you've got.
Yes, the noise. It's the noise are giving this impression, I think. And here a ramp. So we have a ramp, meaning that it's a gradient from the left to the right. Okay, so it could be also from the top to the bottom, or it could be simply circular. Circular, it's going to be a circular gradient, a spherical gradient if you want. So circular here, it's going to change. We don't see it much here, but the highlights are going to be dimmed. Instead of having just a white square or white rectangle, it's going to be more rounded with some grading we can control here. For example, we could have, instead of going to the black here, it could be some other color. So we're already going to tint our light. You can see it has an effect depending on this texture. So I guess I'll be back to the, maybe make it very dark green just to try. And I could use some other ramp on it. I could use some noise and so on to break a bit of the lighting. Let's go back to the key light. And definitely my key light is too strong. So I'm just going to decrease the exposure a bit, a lot. Okay, and we have more shading like that. Much more interesting. And yeah, time is up. Yes, I wanted to do much more than that, but anyway, that's the game.
Yes, the art director has returned.
Let's go back to the, let's try a final render. Yeah, there's much more I would like to do with this. I'm not quite satisfied with the texture of the banana. It's pretty nice actually. The SSS, the multi SSS, is doing some great effect here on the under the wrap. But for the body of the banana, I guess I would do something different. Also, the eye is a bit too opaque.
But that would be just a little bit of fiddling around afterward, and that's what I thought. Is that when you're putting it together, I'm glad you actually got quite a bit further than I did last week, and so I'd be very curious to see what this looks like in a final state with a little bit more time put into it.
I'll work on it again. Also, the lighting, I'm not quite well. It always can get better.
Right.
Okay, so let's call it semi-final, almost final.
Almost final version 2.
And from yeah, and from there, oh yeah, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So you can see the rendering is very fast because I have a small model, and Dustin had a very heavy one. That's why I went further than you, I think. But now I could fiddle with everything here and try some of the stuff, just increasing the exposure like that and so on. Yeah, so I'll stop here. Let's say I'm almost satisfied with it, and that's it.
Excellent.
Nice.
Great work. A couple of people have been talking about that. Jason as well as Thomas and Lee. Anders has got a question. So about using the old and new nodes together in the same scene. Says he didn't know that.
Well, you can. Obviously, here the light giving old shadow graph is a leftover, I guess, from the development team. So it's going to be fixed, I'm sure, very soon. I'm already sure the bug has been filed, but it's not really a bug because you can use it. You can use old material from the Redshift graph and the new one. It's going to work together. It's the same material. It's only the interface that change.
Definitely. And so personally, I prefer not to work in both of them because you start to get going back and forth. But it's definitely possible.
Here in this example, it was very simple. I should have created a new material and just plug my ramp and so on to the light. You can see it here if I go back. any material you have here, this light. So if you just plug something here to the light, you're going to make your material a light. It's that easy.
Awesome.
Dustin, you were saying a couple of comments about how you would have approached this and how you would have done it slightly differently, especially with those gray shades that you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's really different to see the way that Lionel works in this fashion, and this is why I feel that these type of sessions are really important. Is because you get to see the different ways that we work, and so in my personal workflows, I like to have, say, a neutral gray material when I'm working on lighting. I'll have a neutral gray material with some diffused reflections on them, so that I can start to see what those reflections will look like. Where Lionel will work in, a straight diffuse, no reflective material while he's doing lighting. In this case, and it's pretty cool to see the way that works, because there's many different ways to approach these things, and in our cases, this kind of showed a difference between. So I'm curious to see what Elly does. That'll be good to see.
Yeah. Me too.
That is true. Absolutely. Oh, one quick question. Chris has asked about the objects labeled Redshift environment, because he just missed that.
Yes. What is the question?
Yes. What is the object labeled Redshift environment? He's asking.
Oh, it's just to make volumetric lighter. It's just going to materialize the lighter. The spotlight is going to appear like a spotlight. The point light is going to appear like a sphere. It's very interesting to create mood on with lighting, and with some noise, you're going to carve into this volume, because it's just a gradient at the base. But once you add some texture to it, it's going to give you texture and make it more interesting.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Thank you for that. And also, since you mentioned Elly, can I grab the screen back from you, Lionel?
Of course.
I was going to say what was going to happen next week. So let me show this window. Here we are. So we've got Elly turning up next week, who's going to be the challengee. She's going to be the one in the hot seat. So we're going to invent some additional things that she might not be able to use. There was some comments about maybe we should remove the dome light, perhaps replace it with can't use Maxon noise. That would be an interesting one.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll put our heads together. We'll make it specific, interesting.
Yeah, with the Maxon noise, yeah, we put it everywhere. So, good idea.
It's interesting to try stuff out. And then just to quickly ask you, Lionel, how do you think this has made you think about future work, or are you pretty much choosing these techniques according to what you want to achieve artistically?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because typically for the Gobo light, it's so much nicer to use already some bitmap texture, and also I would have used some of them for the noise, I guess. Using bitmaps is faster, and your bitmap. I'm always using the same one. I have like 10, 15 of them. With the noises, it's more interesting to work with, but it's also harder. You don't always get exactly what you want, but it's some kind of more exciting because you really had to work for it to get some nice results.
Interesting. Excellent. Thank you for everyone who's attending this, for your comments and questions the way through, and thanks you for the nice comments at the end about a nice session and so on. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll come up, as Dustin says, we'll come up with some interesting options that we can get you to vote on. But well done, Lionel. You I know you were wondering what was this going to be like, but you did really good. And we'll post this. Well, you're going to do a little more work on it, aren't you? And
yes,
then we'll
of course,
post
yes.
it. Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
Fantastic. So check out the Maxon Twitter feed, and you'll see that in the next day or so.
Awesome.
Great. Well done. And thank you for everyone for taking this time with us. And we will see you all on the next one, if not before, on some of the other sessions that we've got coming up.
Sounds
Take care,
great.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye.